Hey everyone, Sean Gladney here with the Warrior Drumline. Thanks for checking out the 7th video in our series of fundamentals for the battery. In this video we're going to talk about the marching bass drum line and the specifics of technique when you're playing bass drum. Now first, it's important to know that bass drum line is a group of people, typically 4 or 5, and each drum is a different size and it has a different pitch. So as we move from high to low, we get smaller to bigger. That means that we can play almost a melody between the 5 or 4 people that we have here. When reading bass drum, we all read on the same staff, but each space is assigned to a different player. So it takes a lot of making sure you know exactly where your rhythms fit with the pulse and where your rhythms interact with the other members of the group. The next difference in bass drumming is the mallets that we use. Okay, so the mallet head is this big, felt, heavy head. And so we have to offset that a little bit by moving our grip down to the very end of the mallet. We really don't want a whole lot sticking out. And that's just to counter the weight of the felt head on those mallets. Next, we're still playing match grip. We've already mastered that, but we have to play it sideways, and that's a little weird. So let's get that set up. Get a good match grip in your hand and hold it right by your side. If you notice, the mallet head has a slight angle in front of you when you're just naturally holding it. We want to keep that angle. All I want you to do is bend your elbow. Don't change anything down here. Just bend your elbow until your forearm is flat or parallel to the floor. If the drum height is correct, you should be playing right in the center of the head. You shouldn't have had to torque your wrist down or up or move your elbow any weird or move your arm any weird. You should have just bent your elbow until your arm is parallel to the ground, and you should naturally be in the playing position. It's got this nice slight angle out into the center of the drum. Now you may need to kick your elbow out from your body just a little bit to avoid hitting your hand on the rim, but don't kick your elbow all the way out here. Just move it maybe an inch or 2 out to just change the angle of your arm to the drum. Next is how we accomplish a stroke in this weird position. I want you to think about the mallet head pulling the mallet out and down. You're going to, as that happens, you're going to rotate your wrist. Rotate your wrist out and down to keep that mallet on a smooth path down and back into the drum. We want it nice and flat when we hit the drum, and then smooth out and back down. When you're in the playing position, you can see the nail of your thumb. As you rotate out, I can no longer see the nail on my thumb, but I can see my other 4 fingernails. Boom. This is called the wrist rotation method of bass drumming. There are a few variations of how to play bass drum, but we use the wrist rotation method. Again, think about the mallet head pulling that mallet out. You just rotate out and back in. You may feel like you have to use a little bit more arm in bass drumming, and that's okay. The arm is just transporting that wrist as you come out and back down. This is going to feel unnatural at first, and it's important to go slow and really think about the arc that you're creating and the proper technique to master this before speeding up. Now, some things not to do, right? Don't ever crank your wrist. Don't crank your wrist down. As you're doing this, don't get like a sweeping motion. We don't want that sweeping motion. We want a nice wrist rotation motion. Also, if anything in bass drumming ever hurts, you're probably not doing something right. So a lot of people I see when they play bass drum, they crank their wrist and they're like, well, my wrist hurts. Well, that's because you're not in the right playing position. If something hurts, stop and adjust. Make sure you're doing the correct thing. Also, always make sure that you're adjusting the drum to you, whether it's on a stand or carrier, so that your arm can always be parallel to the floor and then you can be directly in the center of the drum head. Again, go slow as you're trying to master this, and really think about the technique and that the mallet head is pulling it and directing the motion. Once you've mastered the technique, then it's reading the bass drum parts and learning splits, and that's just mastering rhythms with the metronome.